Hi there, and a huge welcome to the Transcend and Succeed show, where we hear stories and insights of remarkable individuals making waves in their personal development. Today I have the honour of having Julie Ann Mercouris, a luminary in the field of entrepreneurship, media coaching and personal development. Her journey is a testament to resilience and transformation, from overcoming many personal struggles to becoming a beacon of empowerment. As the host of Own Your Wellness on this network, she seamlessly blends her expertise in media with her passion for health and wellness, guiding countless individuals on their path to holistic well-being. Today, Julie Ann will share her insights on reinventing yourself, overcoming adversity, embracing leadership, and the profound journey of self-discovery. So without any further ado, welcome to the show, Julie Ann.
Hey, Dawn. Thank you for having me today.
You're so welcome. It's lovely to see you. So, Julie Ann, you've overcome many personal struggles in your life. So can you tell us what they were and that point when you realised that you had to take back control of your life?
You know, that's the thing is I don't actually love talking about the negative things because I never wanted to turn into feel sorry for me or anything like that. But it is part of the journey. And the reason why I do choose to share some of these things about my past is so that people can realize that they can be anywhere in their life and be anywhere that they want to be, that there is hope, that as long as you're breathing, that you can grow, change, succeed from wherever you are. There doesn't have to be any reason to stop you besides maybe your own thinking. So, I've dealt with countless losses. My mother, my brother, my uncles, 3 partners, romantic partners, countless friends, sexual assault a few times. There's plenty of reasons, homelessness, alcoholism. I've basically done the gamut of trauma type of things. And I got to the point where it was losing so many people for me that I realized I'm here. A lot of the people I've lost were in their 30s and 40s when they passed. And I just thought, I'm still here. And I'm squandering my life. And in order to honor who they were and honor my opportunity to be alive, I need to get my head out of my hiney and start living fully, whether that feels good or not. And it was kind of interesting because once I started to lean into the things that were uncomfortable, they sort of went away. And it was easier to deal with it when they popped up again, because nothing ever really goes away, but it definitely gets easier to deal with and learn from.
Yeah, I think it's different. If you accept something that it is what it is, it might not be comfortable, it might not be a good thing or be perceived as a good thing. But if you can accept it and work through it, it just seems to flow through you and you get through it a lot quicker.
Absolutely. You know, there's a saying in AA, and it's just, just to lean in, to suit up and show up. And I've taken that to heart because it doesn't matter if I like it or not. It is what it is. And, if you can accept the things that you can't change, then it makes it a lot easier to just deal with things how they are. I think a lot of the suffering comes from hoping, wishing, and praying it was different than what it actually is. And when you just like, this is what it is for me in this particular moment, then you come from a much more powerful vantage point and you're able to move through it quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. So in the midst of life's noises, because there's a lot of noise going on right now on the planet, when and how do you suggest listening to yourself instead of others?
That is a really good question, because I came from a place where I was taught I couldn't trust myself, because of my drinking problem. All my decisions got me to where I was, which was homeless, drunk, and, on food stamps for quite a while. It was awful. And so I was taught that I needed to look outside of myself for all of the answers. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the answers are actually within. So how do you really listen to yourself versus other people? And my theory, and this is how I kind of have learned to grow into that, is you don't do life by yourself, but you have to do it yourself. And so I know me better than anybody else. If I don't have that intuitive answer within me, then I might ask out somebody else that I trust, somebody's counsel versus somebody's opinion. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't go to a homeless person and ask them who they invest their money in. Like, that doesn't make sense. That's an opinion. But mm-hmm. I go to a financial advisor and ask them. So that would be counsel. So to me, it turns into, if I can't trust that voice, or I'm not sure it's not loud enough for me to actually hear, then I will seek counsel from somebody else. And then usually at that point, my voice will kick in and I can decide if I'm going to take that advice or not, or how I'm going to move forward. So really, it's more learning how to listen within and trusting yourself, but also asking the right people when mm-hmm. you need help.
I think a big step too is awareness. Just what you said there, you were looking outside of yourself for answers. Mm-hmm. I think if people understand that the only thing you can change is yourself, and the only way you can change it is by going within, right? Mm-hmm. It's not all outside like we have been conditioned to believe all our life. Things outside, materialistic things might be good for a little while. They might make us feel good for, a week or 10 days, 2 years, maybe even. But then if it's not coming from within, it doesn't last for very long, does it? So I think awareness about how life really works is the big step.
It really is, because shiny objects tarnish at some point. So at some point, you can have all the money in the world, and I'm all for having all the money in the world. Don't get me wrong. But it does not give you peace. Mm-hmm. It's, if your brain is crazy, your brain is crazy. If you're listening to thoughts that are self-deprecating, if you are being your own bully, if you don't have that inner peace, it does not matter what you have outside of you. It does not matter. It's not going to, it's like, I don't remember exactly how the saying goes, but basically it's like if you're hungry and you slap a sandwich on your skin to feed yourself, you're not.
That's a really good way of looking at it.
It's the same idea.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so hear you. And you also emphasize, the importance of loving yourself. So can you tell us from your perspective then why loving yourself is so crucial?
It's kind of one of those ideas that is really popular, and it kind of is vague, and a lot of people don't really understand. It's just kind of a buzz concept versus mm-hmm. actually really understanding what people mean by that. So it kind of takes away the power of what it actually is, in my opinion. But to me, loving myself, first of all, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if I don't love myself, how can I really show love to anybody or anything else? Because I don't have it for myself. And as within as without. So that is obviously very important. But to me, self-love is showing myself grace for the mistakes that I've made and the choices that I've made that maybe have led me down a path where I hurt someone else, including myself. And, it's not necessarily a bubble bath and shopping. It could be as simple as I went to bed at 9, even though I wanted to watch a TV show, or I'm eating the Brussels sprouts instead of the Twizzlers, or, I'm going to the gym versus sitting on the couch. Those are all acts of self-love. Brushing my teeth is an act of self-love because I'm showing myself respect and honor by taking care of this meat suit that I'm in. But also, how am I feeding my soul? How am I feeding my mind? How am I taking care of my emotions? Am I letting my emotions run me, or am I listening to them and and being in charge of my own life? Those are all things of self-love. It's just, to me, loving myself is really accepting who I am and understanding that I'm perfectly imperfect, and that's okay.
I like that. You've got to fill your own cup first. I talk about, when you're on an aeroplane and the oxygen masks fall down, you're always told to put your own one on first. And why is that? Because if anything happens and you can't breathe, you can't help anyone beside you. So you've got to look after yourself first. And people think I kind of grew up with the kind of assumption that, doing anything for myself was a selfish act.
Yeah.
And it's not a selfish act. It's so, so important. You've got to look after yourself first before you can look after others. And again, I totally agree with you. It's your perception of self-care, or whether you think it could be selfish.
Absolutely. And the thing too is, like I said, we don't go through life alone, but if my happiness and my joy and my peace of mind depends on somebody outside of myself, then I'm in for a world of hurt. So I've got to learn how to give it to myself first. And it's amazing how once you can find it without needing or requiring it from anyone or anything else, how all of a sudden all these other things come popping up into your life that are wonderful and are loving and generous and all the wonderful things that we're always looking for outside of ourselves. But when we learn to give it to ourselves first and we don't require it of somebody else, it makes life so much more peaceful.
It allows you to receive it as well. If you're giving the love to yourself, you then accept that love that you're giving yourself, and it just comes from all directions, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. So what are some of the differences that people might encounter when forging their own path in life versus conforming to societal expectations?
Well, I think that even loving yourself is one of those things where you have to be able to forge your own path. And it brings up this whole idea of the selfish idea. Well, you're only thinking about you, and those are ideas that are out there. And so when you are forging your own path, when you are creating your own magic, there are going to be naysayers. There are going to be people that are asking you why you're doing it, calling you crazy. And here's the thing, everything is impossible and crazy until it's done. The 4-minute mile was impossible. Flying through the air was impossible. All of these things were absolutely crazy until it wasn't. So you have to be okay with looking crazy to other people as long as you're following your truth. It can be a little lonely when you're discovering your own path. I've never done anything by the book. I'm 45. I just got married recently, less than a year ago, for the first time. I didn't have kids. People would say things to me like, you still have time, or you'll find the one. And it's like, don't you think that if I wanted all that sooner that I could have had that? I've lived outside of the country. I've done all sorts of amazing things that other people thought were absolutely insane. But I did it because that's what I was called to do. And so not everybody will always understand what your path is. And that's something that you have to be okay with and understand that and the acceptance doesn't always come from the people you hope it will come from. A lot of the times it comes from complete strangers. But one of my coaches said to me once, and I thought this was brilliant, it was, people are going to think you're crazy until you do it. So you can either stop before you're done and people still think you're crazy, or you can complete what you said you're going to do and people will ask you how you did it. So which one do you want? And I thought, wow, I really like that.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That's a good one. Can you share with us some key insights then on anything else that people can do to reinvent themselves?
Here's the thing. I think we get stuck in this idea of I'm this personality, I'm this way, this is who I am. No, you're not. This is how you've acted and how you've shown up, but that is not who you are. People think it's really hard to change, but it's really not. Think about it. If you have a little baby in your hands, all of a sudden you're speaking baby talk, and your face, your expression, you're just, the whole thing. But if you're the head of a boardroom, you better believe your demeanor is completely different and how you're showing up. That doesn't mean that you're a totally different person. It just means how you approach your life and how you're going to show up looks different. And that's what the whole thing is. Who do you want to be? Because you're making it up anyway. So you might as well just make up who you want to be. It's similar to the idea of fake it till you make it, but it's not fake because it's just a different part of who you are. And you're just bringing that to the forefront. It's not that it's fake. It's just maybe you haven't expressed that part of yourself yet. And, stop believing the past because it's there for a reason. If you want to be or do or have something different, you just have to try and be and do something different. I'm going to be I'm going to be in an Olympic triathlon. So running, swimming, biking in less than a month. I don't think of myself as an athlete, but that's an athlete activity now, isn't it? Yes. So I'm just showing up. I'm going to do it. But if I listen to everybody else, then they would say you're too old or your knee, all these excuses. I choose not to listen to that because I know I can do it. Yeah. Because I've decided to.
Well, I think we live a lot of our life based on other people's rules and opinions. That's just the way we're brought up and we're conditioned to believe. Yeah. If we stop thinking about other people's issues with us and just get on with doing what we're happy with and what makes us feel good, I think we'll get on an awful lot better. But we do tend to, put ourselves in boxes and slap a label on based on what other people are saying.
Exactly. I just think about how many people are in careers. And, I went to school for biochemistry, so I'm not immune to any of this. This is coming from my own personal experience. And the reason why I chose biochemistry was for two reasons. One, I was working in pharmacy, and I figured if I'm going to work in pharmacy, I should be a pharmacist. So I went to school for biochemistry. But the main reason was I wanted to prove how smart I was because I thought other people perceived me as not intelligent. Well, I kind of actually proved them right because I went to school for something that I really didn't have that much of an interest in. Mm-hmm. So because I was trying to prove myself to other people.
Yeah.
It's like, who are they? And they are making up these rules, but where did they even come from? How do we even know that it's actually true? Because, the world was flat until it was round. Mm-hmm. All these different things that we thought were true, steadfast and true, turned out not to be. And we believed it because that's what we were told. Mm-hmm. So what if we told ourselves, and like I said before about looking within, what does our soul say for us? What is my compass say for me? Mm-hmm. And how am I going to be brave enough to follow that compass? Sometimes it takes me a while. I'm not perfect at following it because I still care what other people think and how they feel about me. But 99% of the time, I do as I want because I only get to live in this body this one time, and I'm going to make the most of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think people make choices based on what other people think and what their guidelines are, rather than actually going within and using, their intuition, their gut feel. Am I comfortable with this? This is something that, makes my heart dance, makes my heart sing. Yeah. So no more rules and opinions of others, people. No more. That we need to stop that now.
Exactly. It's time to embrace what we want. I mean, as long as we're not hurting others and all the normal rules of peace and love, then fine. Why does it matter what my job is to you?
That's right. No, it's very true. So can we talk a little bit about leadership, because it's a essential theme in your work, and what qualities do you believe are essential for effective leadership, especially in today's rapidly evolving world?
Well, here's the thing that I think a lot of people misunderstand about leadership is just because you have leadership qualities doesn't mean you have to always lead. There's nothing wrong with being the follower. We need everybody doing all the different pieces. And where I am a leader is maybe not where you're a leader, but you're going to be a leader in areas where I am not, and I would choose to follow your lead. So there's nothing wrong with any position in life, as far as I'm concerned, whether it's leadership or following. I don't really like that word either because it sounds submissive, but it's leading yourself, but following the direction of somebody else. And because that's where you're going to shine the most. And for me, that's what leadership is. It's bringing out the best in other people. So I've worked in a few jobs where I was not really allowed to shine the brightest because I might be outshining other people. But isn't that why you hired me? So that I could do my job exceptionally well? Let me shine. If you let me shine, I will continue to do an exceptional job. I don't want what you have. I want to be my best me. So for me, leadership is showing up, and it's excellence. And excellence is doing the best you can with what you have. And leadership shows up so differently for so many people, but it starts within. It starts within ourselves. How am I going to show up for myself? Now, I bring up this idea of the triathlon again because I've been talking about doing it for 15 years roughly. Well, I finally was like, I need to do what I said I was going to do because that's how I show up in my life. I don't say I'm going to do something important and then not do it. So that's important to me, even though I really don't feel like doing it. I'm doing it. Because I said I was going to, and I've been talking about it for long enough. How many people do you know have a bucket list and never do their bucket list? They were always talking about how they're going to do it, but they never actually do it. So to me, leadership is really just doing the things that you say you're going to do, showing up with excellence. And like I said, it starts within. How are you showing up for yourself first and foremost? And that to me is an act of self-love as well. How are you showing up for you? What do you need? Maybe it is a nap. And that's the thing that's really going to help you that day. And that's another part of leadership too, is really understanding if you are going to be working with other people, what is it that they need right then? Because you need to be able to spot what it is. And it might have absolutely nothing to do with the job at hand. That's what is going to actually make them succeed at the job at hand. So it's absolutely fascinating to me. Whenever I have a client who is struggling with getting to where they want to go, I am always asking, what's your physical goal? Because if you have a physical goal that matches, say, your business goal, the likelihood of you reaching it quicker and easier is astronomically higher because of who you're becoming as a well-rounded person as you're reaching these goals. Because it's really one and the same because you're one person doing these things. So that to me is leadership.
Yeah, and the only person that you let down is yourself, isn't it? I discovered that a couple of years ago. It's like a clanger to the back of the head. It's like, whoa, I have not seen this for years. Why am I not doing this? Why have I not been showing up for myself? Never mind anyone else, for the last few years. So that really changed me. But now you've made me feel guilty now because I've got a bit of a bucket list there, and there's probably a few things on it that I've not really done too much about it. But yeah, I understand. But yeah, the only person you're letting down is yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, you are letting yourself down. And that's the thing, is then you don't trust yourself. You don't trust that you're going to show up because you didn't do what you said to yourself you were going to do. And it's this whole idea of who's going to know. Me, I'm going to know. Yeah. That's the important person.
That's very true. I think now's a good time. We'll take a quick break. Stay with us though, because after the break, Julie's going to tell us her fun fact. So we'll be right back.
Holy Hydrogen introduces the most powerful health enhancement device in the world, the Lord's Hydrofix Premium Edition. Studies have shown therapeutic potential for cancer, diabetes, digestive and heart issues, and essentially every organ and system in the body. Visit holyhydrogen.com to see the latest technology that elevates your immune system and fights inflammation. This isn't medical advice, but if you have any health concerns, I strongly recommend that you learn more about hydrogen. Visit holyhydrogen.com to learn more about this groundbreaking gold standard hydrogen generator that for a reasonable price creates therapeutic quality hydrogen gas for inhalation and hydrogen infused water for consumption. Remember, holyhydrogen.com.
And welcome back to the Transcend and Succeed show. And I'm here with Julie Ann Mercouris today. And Julie's going to tell us her fun fact. Take it away, Julie Ann.
Thank you, Dawn. So I lived in Italy for a little over a year and learned Italian while I was there. And when I came back to the United States, I discovered accidentally that I happened to, because I speak in my sleep a lot of the time, and when I speak in my sleep, I'm fluent in Italian. So I thought that was really fascinating that I was able to conjugate and have complete conversations in fluent Italian with an Italian person. A friend of mine was over and was the person who told me about this. Otherwise, I never would have known. But according to them, I speak better than a friend of ours who'd been in the country for 30 years, and I had no idea. So to me, the interesting thing about that is how when I'm awake, I can't speak that same way. So how am I stopping myself in other ways in my life because I've already decided I'm not capable of doing something?
There you go. Yeah, the Italian language, fluent in your subconscious mind, comes out when you're sleeping.
Yeah, it's so weird.
It's very weird. That's funny because when you gave me that fun fact, I'm like, no, that must be an April Fool.
I've got a lot of interesting ones, but that one's my favorite because it's so odd and it's so eye-opening too, because, you know, when I am relaxed, I speak so much with more ease in Italian. But when I'm sitting there thinking about it, all of a sudden these roadblocks come up. So it's fascinating because if I'm doing that with that, what else am I doing that with? So I would keep that in mind, that the only person stopping me is me.
Yeah, release and let it go and it'll flow.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. That's a soundbite.
There you go. There you go. Now, as someone that's deeply involved in media coaching, what advice do you have for aspiring thought leaders looking to amplify their message and their influence?
So a lot of thought leaders who are looking to create the impact that they desire, they're also afraid to put themselves out there, but you have to be vulnerable enough to be visible and really be who you are. And that is going to be more than enough to get your message across if you are authentic and yourself. Now, the thing that can be a little bit scary about putting yourself out there is this idea of everybody's watching.
Yes.
But nobody's looking to actually see you fail. They're actually there to hear what you have to say. And as long as you come into it with that peace of mind, then it makes it a lot easier. And something that I learned along the way that's really helped me, because I've done a lot of speaking and I've been on a lot of different stages. And I'm not afraid to be on camera or in person at all. And it hasn't always been like that. But the thing that really made it comfortable for me was to realize it's not about me. When I stopped making it about me, then and about who I'm trying to affect and change in a positive way, all of a sudden it was the words just flew out of my mouth, not a problem, because it wasn't a vanity project. It wasn't about me as a person. It was about the message. It was about who was receiving it, not me. So that's the number one thing, is to not make it about yourself.
I mean, I've been doing this for about 8 months now, 7-8 months. I was terrified to start with, but I think it was roughly about 3 months down the line, I was still feeling horrible every time I knew I was going to be, doing a recording or a show. And see, once I decided, to hell with what anyone else thinks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to do this. I want this to be enjoyable. I don't want to be stressed to the max every time I know I'm going to have a guest. So it really makes such a difference. Yeah, just let it go. Just
let it rip.
Don't worry, because, and it is true. The only thing that that you believe is what you think other people are thinking about you, and they're probably not judging in the slightest.
No, they really aren't. Most people don't even notice. That's the thing that is really fascinating. And, I'm really blessed because I used to work in addiction recovery, and that was a really hard job. So much death and trauma and just pain to be around constantly. But being in a position of authority around people who hate authority really got me okay with people not liking me. Because those people who really despise me the most, those are typically the ones that reach out to me later and say, I just didn't understand, or I appreciate you. So it really made me realize that as long as I'm showing up doing my best version of me, that's more than enough. And people can take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, not everybody's going to like the thing that you're doing. I mean, you can't have everybody liking the same thing, because the world would be a really boring place. I think as long as we accept that we may not be for some people, and just go on and do it anyway because we enjoy it and it's fun.
Well, and that's the thing too, is I still don't like to be controversial, but sometimes I am. And the thing that I remember one of my coaches said once, if you don't have haters, then you're probably not that invested in your message yet. And I thought that was really interesting, because you're not going to keep everybody happy. Like if I were to keep to make my dad happy wouldn't be the same sort of lifestyle as to make my husband happy, as to make my best, I can't do that. I ultimately just have to be me, and it's okay as long as you're doing that. And then here's the beautiful thing about it that people don't really realize is you give other people permission to do what they want to do and be who they want to be just by showing them that it's possible. So I was thinking about that whenever somebody's kind of negative, but honestly, I don't even really have that experience. So I don't.
Yeah, because you don't care. You don't care. You don't care what they think. I know. I must admit, I'm getting there. I'm almost fully there by not caring at all what anybody thinks. But it's a nice place to be. It really is. So something that you have done a lot more recently, you've co-hosted the Think and Grow Rich Institute Summit with the LA Tribune. So can you share some key takeaways from that experience and how it aligns with your mission?
Anything Think and Grow Rich, I truly enjoy because the principles are timeless, and it really puts the power back into the person instead of outside of the person. So to me, I love working with the LA Tribune. I've done a lot of work with them. I've hosted a lot of summits with them. But that particular one was fascinating because of the thought leaders that I got to interview. Once again, it's sometimes you can hear the same thing over and over again. But when you hear it from a certain person, the way they say it or their energy when they say it, it just hits different. And it's like all of a sudden it goes from being something up here to something you feel in here. And it's something that you embody versus know intellectually. And that is something that I find absolutely fascinating when I get the opportunity to interview so many people. I mean, I think I interviewed like 40 people for that. So there was a lot of work, don't get me wrong, in the most wonderful way. But I think, one of the things that made me think about was that all the concepts in Think and Grow Rich are pretty easy. But yet, if they're so easy, then why aren't there more multimillionaires and billionaires out there? Because the book is very popular. So why aren't there more? And it made me realize, because people don't actually do the steps. They know it up here, but they don't actually know it up here. Yeah, they don't apply any of the things that they're learning about because it seems silly or simple, and it can't be that easy, but usually it really is that easy. I think that we as humans try and make things way more difficult because we've decided like to be a multimillionaire is going to be hard. So we're going to make that experience hard for ourselves because that's what we've already decided it's going to look like. So I think that the biggest thing, my biggest takeaway from that is to keep listening, and instead of just listening, start applying, because, you know, I can read a million books about meditation. It's not the same thing as actually sitting there and meditating. It doesn't have the same effect. So really, it does turn into what are you willing to do and change about how you show up for yourself in order to get where you want to go. Because like I said, also, sometimes the reason you haven't reached your goals has very little to do with the actual goal. Sometimes it is how you're feeling, you know, in your body, or sometimes are you sleeping enough? How's your stress level? I mean, how are you showing up for yourself? And that will all affect everything else. We don't live in a work life and a home life and a this life. We are one life. So we got to start treating ourselves holistically in order to feed the entirety of ourselves versus just this part or that part. Instead of like segregating things out, I think we need to start putting ourselves together.
Agreed. And I think sometimes some people can't be told. I mean, we could be saying the same thing as an influencer on stage, but as soon as the influencer says it, it's like, oh, I've got that light bulb moment. Oh, now I understand. Yeah, but I've been saying that to you for years. You know?
Yep. I experience that all the time in what I do. It's, you know, it's just sometimes you're not ready yet, and that's okay. Or it does need to be a different voice, or whatever the case may be. And there's nothing wrong with that. And for me, I used to be like, why did I, you know, so-and-so's been telling me this forever. Why wouldn't I just listen? It doesn't matter. I heard it now. Now I can move forward with that information here versus here. So showing yourself grace, always important.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. So how do you balance the pursuit of personal growth with the demands of your professional life?
You know, I think it's all one and the same. So to me, I can't succeed any further than who I've grown into as a human being. So, you know, I've had a lot of fits and stops. So I've done really well and really bad because I wasn't mentally and emotionally capable of sustaining that level of success at that particular moment in time.
Yes.
And until I was ready to do that, it would stop and start. So the more open and the more it comes back to that whole self-love thing and personal development, how much good can I handle? Because I think that a lot of us are afraid or don't think we're worthy of it. So in order to succeed, you really have to believe that you deserve it and that it is a birthright versus you have to me, it actually doesn't come down to as much doing as much as being. Who am I being? How am I showing up? The most successful I've been is because I started showing up for myself first. And once that part was in order, then everything else falls into place. So like even I was on a trip recently and I made enough money off of one phone call while I was out in Central America on a boat to pay my bills for over a month.
Oh, that's great.
I was on vacation. So, you know, that's where I'm at now with success versus where it would be like, can I afford that pack of gum? I don't know. So,
yeah, and you don't hear any message until you're ready to hear it.
No, you really can't. It's like you can hear it and you think you know it. That's the tricky part. You think you really get it, and then all of a sudden it's like the light bulb turns on and you really understand it. And
that's your knowing, isn't it? Your internal knowing.
Knowingness versus the understanding. I think that's the click over, the tipping point, as they say, when you go from like one part, it's just embodiment. When you embody it versus
because you've experienced it. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's when the wisdom comes in as well. Yeah, it's not just a thinking and understanding. It's more about a knowing because you've experienced it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we all go through those at different times, where it's not all going to happen for everyone at the same time.
No, and it's never done. That's the thing. I think a lot of people think of like, once I get here, then I'll be done, or it'll be easier. It doesn't get easier. That's the thing with success. It doesn't get easier. There's always going to be a new level, a new issue, a new growth to go through.
Growth and expansion, yeah.
Always, because if you're not growing, you're dying. So
you're stagnant, yes.
Stagnant. I mean, well, yeah, you could be stagnant or dying. So stagnant, what fun is that? You're just sitting there. Oh, I don't know about you, but I've been stagnant, and it's boring.
It's not pretty.
Yeah. And that, like, when I lived in Italy, that's the thing that was another amazing experience for me, because, people didn't understand. They're like, oh, you lived in Italy. It must have been fabulous. Yeah, I lived there. I wasn't on vacation. I lived there. That means like I spent my day-to-day life. I just was a different place. And at that time, it was dial-up internet, and nobody had flip phones yet. And it was like you pulled out the map to look and see where you were going. So it wasn't as easy to exist. And so now I'm like trying to do my day-to-day life in a language I don't understand, and in a culture I have no idea about. So yeah, no, it wasn't exactly easy. But the thing that was fascinating was when I moved back to New York City, it took me years to figure out what was missing and why I was not as happy as I was when I lived in Italy, because it didn't have anything to do with Italy per se. And it took me, like I said, a long time to figure out. It was because I was uncomfortable slightly almost all of the time when I lived in Italy. And there were so many ways for me to escape and be comfortable in the United States that I didn't have that same level of growth. And it just wasn't as fulfilling. It wasn't as fun. It wasn't as amazing. Even though when I was living in Italy, it didn't feel like fun in the traditional sense. So we got to kind of reinvent the way we look at what's enjoyable, like embrace the suck, as they say.
Yeah, embrace the suck. Yeah, you've got to have things that are not so good to appreciate the things that are good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So in your opinion then, what role does mindset play in achieving success? So both personally and professionally.
Oh, mindset is everything. It all starts with our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. That's really where everything is. And everything that is created in reality started up here originally. So it's an energy that's behind it. One of Will Smith's mentors said, scared money doesn't make money. And I've always loved that, because as soon as you can relax into things, and all of a sudden everything starts flowing, and it's like, how did that happen? Well, my mindset shifted, the way I think about things. Like, we're telling ourselves a story anyway, so we might as well tell ourselves a good story. What is going to serve me? Is it empowering me? Or am I falling into like this victim mentality? Bad things happen to good people. Sad things happen to good people. Yeah. It's not about that. That's just how life works. But it also depends on the perspective we're choosing to look at it from. So real quick, there's a prosperity coach named Edwina Gaines, and she's like a Unity Church leader and all these things. And I used to listen to one of her CDs, many years ago. CDs, that's how long ago it was. But one of the things that she was sexually assaulted as like a little tiny child before the age of 2, and like raped and all of this. I mean, why would that is not okay. She had no way, like she didn't call that into her life. She didn't, there's, depending on how you want to look at it. But the point is that it happened, and she spent her entire life being the victim of that. Yeah. And one day, one of her coaches said, Edwina, we're tired of hearing this story. Can you shut up about it? And she was horrified that this person would say this to her, because obviously she didn't choose this for herself. This happened to her, and she was a victim of violence. And he's like, let's reframe this story for you, Edwina, because this story is not serving you. And he said, and the way they ended up reframing it was that her soul needed to learn a lesson early on in her development, that if you abuse power, what it can do to other people, so that when she became a woman of power, she wouldn't abuse her power. And I thought that was so much more empowering than her being a victim. It doesn't excuse the behavior. It doesn't excuse what happened to her, but the story she told emboldened her and empowered her to be an even more amazing leader, because she wasn't a victim anymore. And I love that, because that's a way more powerful story than being the victim. I mean, it doesn't change what happened. The facts are the facts, and it doesn't change it. It doesn't change it. Those are those things. But what are you telling yourself about it? So mindset is everything. Like you get to decide how you're going to look at things.
And she was, because of that, and because she felt like a victim, she was living in her past, and she wasn't able to live in the present moment. Therefore, she wasn't able to get over it. So she was allowing her experiences and her emotions and feelings to drive her life, which are based on her past experiences. So she's going to keep having this big cycle going round, and nothing's going to change until she changes her mindset. Yeah. And then she changes her vibration.
Exactly. And imagine after that, how much more powerfully she could show up, not only for herself, but for other people, because she wasn't a victim in her own mind. So it's like, her vibration changed. Absolutely. Doesn't forgive what happened. Or maybe, she was able to forgive it. But like the story she told herself was so much more, it served her so much better than being the victim. So that's how I always remember that when something happens that I don't approve of in my life.
Yeah, that happens. So how do you approach failure, and what have you learned from your own setbacks along the way?
It's taken me a long time to realize that failure is the way to success. And I was always so afraid of failing that I basically stood still. And I didn't realize that as long as I'm moving forward and learning from these so-called failures, it's really not a failure. It's just that didn't work. It's information to move forward and adjust and change things as I go. And ultimately, I think about people like Michael Jordan. He was, he couldn't even make his high school basketball team. If he let that stop him, then we wouldn't have Michael Jordan, Yes. So that's just how it is. It's not, I think we're taught early on that it's a bad thing, but it's just a thing. It comes back to what we're telling ourselves about that. So, it's just information. It's just if I don't like the result, then I'll do something slightly different. It's just information. As soon as you take the sting out of it like that, then you can move forward and be more powerful in your own life.
Yeah. And I'll say it's not a failure. You've just found something else that doesn't work. So
Exactly.
You're allowed to course correct.
Exactly. Thomas Edison. I mean, can you imagine if he stopped after one try? So to me, it's just an experiment. It's all, if you can gamify life and turn it into a game versus making it life and death, then all of a sudden it's fun. It's like, oh, let me try again.
Yeah. So what advice do you have for individuals who may feel stuck or stagnant in their personal life?
Oh, the thing I've felt like that. And the thing that really gets me going is I need to be more curious again. I've stopped asking questions. I've stopped being curious about life. I've stopped discovering what lights me up. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to follow the paradigm or like the road that you've been traveling. If you're interested in it, you should probably investigate. Let's see what that's about. Like for me, you just don't know where things are going to lead. You don't know how it's going to all tie back together. There's so many things in my life that hindsight, I can connect the dots. But before then, I had no way of knowing. So I just I've always lived my life, well, I'm bored now or I'm stuck here. So what can I do that's going to bring back a level of excitement for living? And whatever that is, I will start putting that into my life. It doesn't have to be major. It could be as simple as, for a long time when I was stuck, first of all, it's a lie. You're never stuck. It's just or maybe you don't like your options or you're afraid to choose something different. But when I was working in a job I felt like I needed to stay in and I hated it, when I started coloring every morning before I went to work, it made such a huge difference in my mood. And then all of a sudden, I could see things differently and opportunities opened up because I was happier. Because when you are in a lower vibration and you're feeling stuck, you're feeling whatever, just something more that we would consider negative, it's like blinders come on and you can't see all the options that are available. But when you raise your vibration and you're starting to live with more curiosity and then all of a sudden the blinders come off and you can see all these different things that were always there, but you just didn't see them because your blinders were on.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to make logical sense. Like you said, does it make me feel good? Do I enjoy doing this? Do I get immersed in it and time just flies?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, what does coloring in a coloring book have to do with anything? But it made me happy and it worked.
Yeah, you got to have something that it's going to nourish your soul, things that you do enjoy. I mean, at the minute, I'm doing an online French course. I'm learning to speak French and I've really been enjoying it. And last week, I finished my league first. I was so happy. I thought, yes, I'm enjoying it. Yeah, I understand what you mean. So, as a media personality, how do you stay authentic and true to yourself amidst the pressures of the industry?
It's interesting because part of the way that I can show up authentically is by wearing a mask. And I'm going to explain that because it's not really a mask in that I'm being somebody else, but it's more that I take myself out of the equation. Like I said before, it's, making it about whatever it is that I am trying to present. I have turned down opportunities that would be really good because they don't align with who I am. Mm-hmm. Or it just doesn't feel right for whatever reason. And I think a lot of people are afraid to say no to certain things and because they're good, but just because they're good doesn't mean they're good for you. So for me, the easiest way to stay authentic is to say yes to the things that light me up and say no to the things that I don't want to do, even if it would behoove me, because I'm not going to enjoy it. And then I'm not going to show up as my best self anyway. So I'm not doing anyone any good if I'm not going to show up as my best self. Like suit up, show up every day, no matter what.
Yeah, do it for yourself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pop this up on screen, Julie Ann, if you would tell us about your ebook.
Oh, absolutely. So I created this book, The Insider's Guide to a Successful Show Creation, because as the network president of Achieve TV, I get asked a lot of questions, obviously about show creation, and it's not for everyone. It doesn't even matter if you're going to be doing a podcast, a TV show, Instagram lives or Facebook lives or LinkedIn lives or anything like that. How can you create something that is going to give the impact that you desire? And basically, I've taken all my years in media and condensed it down into the spree book. You have all the answers there. So literally, you could be highly successful with just this book. You don't even have to hire me. You could use the book, and if you follow it, you will have a successful show, a successful live, a successful anything that creates the most impact. So that's why I did it, because I want everybody to have the opportunity to see if it's for them and be able to, live their life without dying with their music inside them.
Mm-hmm. Great. That's great. And thank you, Julie Ann, for sharing your insights and your journey with us today. And your wisdom and resilience is really inspiring. And we wish you continued success in all of your endeavours. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning in. So join us next week on the Transcend and Succeed show. And until then, stay empowered and keep striving for greatness. Thank you, Julie Ann.
Thank you.
Thanks.